Saptachi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya Stotra Saptachi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Maya Dham Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
The assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Hare Krishna. Shri Guru and Shri Bodha.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Govani Pachayani Nilashesha Shanimani Pastitati Shtani. Hare Krishna. Good morning, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Namo
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, the Creation, Chapter 12, Birth of Emperor Parikshit, Text 26. Rajarshinam Janayita Shasta Chotpatagaminam Nigrahita Kaler Esha Bhuva Dharmasya Karanat Rajarshinam Janayita Shasta Chotpatagaminam Nigrahita Kaler Esha Bhuvo Dharmasya Karanat Rajarshinam Janayita Shasta Chotpatagaminam Nigrahita Kaleresha Bhuvo Dharmasya Karanat. Everyone please chant.
Hare Krishna. Rajarshinam Janayita Shasta Chotpathagaminam Nigrahita Kaler Esha Bhuvo Dharmasya Karanat.
Hare Krishna. Rajarishinam Janayita Sasta Chutpatagaminam Nigrahita Kaler Esa Bhuvo Dharmasya Karanat. Hare Krishna.
Rajarshinam Janayita Sasta Chotpatagaminam Nirgrahitat Kalir Esha Bhuvo Dharmasya Karanat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Rajarshinam Janayita Shasta Chotpatagaminam Nigrahita Kaler Esha Bhuvo Dharmasya Karanat. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Okay, word for word translation. Raja Rishinam, of kings as good as sages. Janayita, producer. Shasta, chastiser. Cha, and Utpatagaminam, of the upstarts. Nigrahita, molester. Kale, of the quarrelsome. Esha, this, Bhuva, of the world, Dharmasya, of religion, Karanat, on account of. Translation. This child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. For world peace and for the sake of religion, he will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The wisest man in the world is a devotee of the Lord. The sages are called wise men, and there are different types of wise men for different branches of knowledge. Unless, therefore, the king or the head of the state is the wisest man, he cannot control all types of wise men in the state. In the line of royal succession in the family of Maharaj Yudhishthir, all the kings without exception were the wisest men of their times. And so also it is foretold that Maharaj Parikshit and his son, Maharaj Janamejaya, who is yet to be born. Such wise kings can become chastisers of upstarts and uprooters of Kali, or quarrelsome elements. As will be clear in the chapters ahead, Maharaj Parikshit wanted to kill the personified Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow, the emblem of peace and religion. The symptoms of Kali are 1, wine, 2, women, 3, gambling, and 4, slaughterhouses. Wise rulers of all states should take lessons from Maharaj Parikshit in how to maintain peace and morality by subduing the upstarts and quarrelsome people who indulge in wine, illicit connection with women, gambling, and meat eating supplied by regularly maintained slaughterhouses. In this age of Kali, regular license is issued for maintaining all of these different departments of quarrel. So how can they expect peace and morality in the state? The state fathers, therefore, must follow the principles of becoming wiser by devotion to the Lord, by chastising the breaker of discipline, and by uprooting the symptoms of quarrel, as mentioned above. If we want blazing fire, we must use dry fuel. Blazing fire and moist fuel go ill together. Peace and morality can prosper only by the principles of Maharaj Parikshit and his followers. Rajarshinam janayita shastachotpatagaminam nigrahita kaler esha bhuvo dharmasya karanat. This child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. For world peace and for the sake of religion, he will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome. Namo Om Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasjadadi Shatarine. Hare Krishna. Continuing the glories of the great Maharaj Parikshit. I didn't notice it when I first read through this verse and purport a few times, but in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, he points out that the verses glorifying Maharaj Parikshit previous to this verse were talking about mainly his guna, his great qualities, especially in relation to the previous generations, his great descendants, the great lineage, the great descendants of kings that he came from, and how his qualities were great. And it was expected he would be great just like them. But this verse is a transition from that idea, from describing the glories of Maharaj Parikshit in terms of previous generations and in terms of his qualities, his guna. Now he's being glorified in terms of what he's going to actually do. Instead of guna, now he's being glorified by his karma. And also now he's being glorified not just because previous generations, but what kind of generation is he going to produce that will come after him? So this is the transition of this verse from guna to karma for glorifying him, and from his great lineage, his great ancestry, up to his descent, what his descendants will be in the future. And in all of those cases, Maharaj Parikshit is so highly qualified in every way. By his qualities, he's qualified, and by his karma. Described today how he'll be the chastiser. Let's see. First of all, Rajarshinam Janaita. He'll not only be a Rajarshi himself, descended from a long line of Rajarshis, but his descendants, he will himself produce Rajarshis who will rule after him. And Shasta Chotpatagaminam. Shasta means chastisement. Specifically, Prabhupada talked about Shasta or Shastra, meaning the rod of chastisement that you beat a wrongdoer with. And he said Shastra is scripture, which is for keeping us in line. And the Kshatriya has the rod of chastisement, or Yamaraj has the rod of chastisement, also for keeping us in line. So these words are related. And for whom? For Chot Pata Gaminam. This is an interesting construction. Pata means path. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that the English word path is descended etymologically from this pata, or path, or the way, or the road in Sanskrit. And cha utpata. Utpata means above the path, or beyond the path, or going off the path. So someone who's not following the proper path, and gaminam means to travel or to walk. So those persons who are not following the proper path, who are not following the path of proper behavior, of proper morality, of proper devotion to Krishna, those persons are to be reined in by the powerful king. Nigrahita Kaler Eshan, specifically Kali. Kali means the personality of Kali, personified Kali Yuga. And in general, Kali means quarrel or quarrelsome. Like what does Queen Kunti say? Bhutanam yan mito Kali, that dissension Kali in this world is the result of social intercourse, people arguing with each other. So Kali means the personality of Kali, who Maharaj Parikshit chastises, and we'll hear all about that. And it also means all the quarrelsome elements, all the ill elements of this age that cause quarrel, that cause dissension, and lead people to become utpatagaminam, to fall off the path of proper behavior. Prabhupada specifically mentions meat eating, illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling as the foundation elements. We avoid those, first of all, because they're sinful and will send us to hell. And because those things will lead us off the right path of behavior and lead us away from the proper path of morality, of good behavior, and especially for us, the path of devotional service. This is why these are the elements of Kali. These are the tools or the means by which Kali manipulates everyone to fall off the path of devotional service. And a great king like Parikshit or his son Janamejaya restrict those things so that people can actually be on the right path and be dharmic and moral and devotional and actually advance in the principles of human life, and especially in devotional service. Bhuvo Dharmasya, to establish religious principles, Bhuvo, for the entire world. Karanat, this is his motivation, his cause of action to do all this. So this is Parikshit Maharaj. First, his qualities, now his great activities are going to be glorified. First in a few verses in summary, the Brahmanas will, and then in future chapters we'll hear all the glorious stories of his chastising the personality of Kali. So we're going to hear about that. since that's coming up about the chastisement of Kali, so I won't go into that story. But I did want to speak a little bit about Maharaj Janamejaya and what was so special about him, what was so great about him, aside from his being the son of Parikshit Maharaj. Let's see now. So Maharaj Janamejaya was Parikshit's son. He became king, of course, after the death of his father. And after the death of his father, Maharaj Janamejaya thought, this monstrous snake, Takshaka, killed my father, the most perfect devotee, the most perfect king and ruler of the world. I'm going to destroy him and destroy all of the race of snakes, of Nagas, for this great sinful deed. So he called all the what would you call his council of brahmanas, and he instructed them, arrange for a big sacrifice. And simply by doing this sacrifice and the chanting of mantras, the brahmanas were causing all of the Nagas in the universe to fly down and fly into the fire of the sacrificial fire and be burned to ashes. And one after another, all the Nagas were being burnt to ashes in this great sacrifice. And then Janamejaya said, hold on, wait a minute. I see all these snakes being cast into the fire, but where's the lowest, most despicable of all of them, Takshaka, who murdered my father? Where is he? And the Brahmana said, oh, this Takshaka, he became scared when he saw this sacrifice being arranged. So he went to Lord Indra and took shelter and begged the mercy and protection of Lord Indra so that he wouldn't be cast into the fire. Oh. Remember, we were discussing last week about Maharaj Shibi, that when the eagle was chasing to kill the pigeon, and the pigeon took shelter, so Maharaj Shibi protected him. So Takshaka went for the shelter of Indra. But Maharaj Janamejaya was so powerful that he instructed the Brahmanas. He said, and the Brahmanas chanted this mantra, Takshakashu pata sweha sahendrena marutwata. Said that let Takshaka himself personally be cast into this fire along with Indra and along with all the demigods protecting them. Let them all be cast into the fire. So they were all going to happen. But then I didn't reread the whole story, but the sages said, no, you shouldn't really. Just like with Dhruva Maharaj. Remember, Dhruva Maharaj was killing hundreds and thousands of millions of yakshas. And then Manu said to him, you need to rein in your anger. You're killing all of these yakshas for the sake of the offense of one. So similarly, eventually Maharaj Janamajaya's anger was pacified, and Indra and the demigods were all spared. But this is how powerful he was as a king, that he was actually able to overrule the rule of the demigods in heaven. This is his power. He came from such great forefathers. All of the glories of the forefathers that the Brahmanas are describing of Parikshit are, of course, equally applicable to Maharaj Janamejaya himself. So he's coming from such a lineage, such an amazing lineage, such a ancestry of kings, that you would expect him to be very great. But this is not always guaranteed, although Prabhupada says in the purport that all the kings in this line, without exception, were great Rajarshis. But sometimes in different lines, there are exceptions, that even with a great lineage, the production may not be that great. Prabhupada told a story. When he visited Boston, I can't remember the first or second time he visited Boston, his disciples arranged for him a speaking engagement at Harvard University. And when he got to Harvard University, he led off his lecture with a story. And he said, one time, everyone in India, everyone knows the Himalayas, the greatest, most majestic, tallest, greatest mountain range there is. And we even heard Parikshit Maharaj, he'll be able to give shelter just like the Himalaya mountains. So the Himalayas are worshipped and well known. And one day news started spreading all around that, oh, the Himalaya mountains are going to give birth. And when people heard that, they thought, oh, the Himalaya mountains are giving birth. What kind of amazing progeny is going to, this is going to be the most glorious progeny from the Himalaya mountains. So all the people were at the base of the mountain range, waiting. The Himalaya mountains are about to give birth. And they heard a big rumbling in the mountains and a roaring sound. They thought, oh, the great progeny of the Himalaya mountains is coming. And down from the mountains came a huge horde of millions and millions of rats. And the people thought, oh, we're expecting some great progeny, but the Himalaya mountains have simply produced rats. And Prabhupada explained that just like this Harvard University is so recognized all over the world, everyone knows Harvard University as the preeminent institution of higher education. But if the people that graduate from it are not trained in Dharma, not trained in devotional service, then it's just like the progeny of the Himalaya mountains producing rats. So even a great parentage can produce a not great son. But Maharaj Janamejaya was not like that. He was the most qualified of all. Or another example is Maharaj Pandu also appeared in the same great line that Parikshit did before him. And Pandu, what a great king, and renounced and dharmic. And the children he produced, the Pandavas, so amazing, so qualified in every way. Never mind the fact that he didn't literally seminally produce them, still they were accepted as his children, and he trained them and raised them and arranged for their education. So practically speaking, they're his children, his descendants, and everyone thought of them as his descendants. So qualified. But Pandu's brother, Dhritarashtra, half-brother, I suppose, had exactly the same lineage, just as good lineage. But look at what he produced. What did he produce? The most awful person, Duryodhana, so condemned. It's described in Mahabharata that we may or may not know the story. I think everyone probably knows the general story that Dhritarashtra and Gandhari also wanted to have children, and she actually got a blessing from a sage, I can't remember. Maybe it was I think it was Vyasadeva himself got the blessing that you will have 100 sons. And she was very happy. So she got pregnant, and she remained pregnant for like 2 years. And during that time, Kunti gave birth to her first son, or her first publicly acknowledged son, Yudhishthir, who was brilliant like the sun itself. And she became so jealous, Gandhari became so jealous and so angry that in anger she struck her own belly. In anger and in disappointment, she struck her own belly. And at that moment, because she did that, she gave birth to a lump of flesh, which they were going to discard. But then Vyasadeva came back and gave instructions. No, you treat this lump of flesh like this. You sprinkle it with cold water. You put it, it'll divide into 101 parts. You put it into pots of ghee. And then after some time, all of the sons of Dhritarashtra took birth from those pieces of lump of flesh kept in the pots of ghee. And Duryodhana, the eldest, came first. And when he was born, Duryodhana appears, he started braying like an ass. That was the first sound out of his mouth. He was braying like an ass. And he did that. All the asses in town and the vultures and the hyenas and jackals and all the unclean animals and carnivorous animals all around the village and in the forest all started braying and howling in response. And there were very unpleasant ill winds blowing and dust storms, and fires started spontaneously all over the kingdom. So naturally everyone could understand this is a very inauspicious situation, very inauspicious son being born. So just like the Brahmanas came at the birth of Parikshit and predicted, oh, his great qualities will be like this and his amazing actions will be like that. So similarly, the Brahmanas came and said, this Duryodhana is nonsense, evil personified. He's going to be the cause of the destruction of your entire dynasty. You have to if you want the good for yourself, for your dynasty, and for your kingdom, you immediately discard this useless son of yours. Don't feel bad. You have 99 other sons. Get rid of this son. He's so awful, so evil. And of course, due to affection, he couldn't do it, and therefore Mahabharata. So, but the same lineage. The point is, they're the same lineage. Pandu and Dhritarashtra, the same lineage, but the lineage isn't enough. The good qualities is enough. You have to practically see, what are you doing and what are you producing? What what's the word I'm looking for? That you leave after you.
Legacy.
Legacy, yes, exactly. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yes, what is the legacy that you're leaving after you is important, most important. So Dhritarashtra lacked that, but Pandava had that. And Parikshit had that. And the proof is in the qualities of Maharaj Janamejaya. So Janamejaya, he was Rajarshi, specifically Rajarshi, a great king who is just like a sage, just like a rishi. And a king has to be like that. We also discussed a couple of weeks ago that a king who has power, if he has that Raja power, that Ishwar above, but if he doesn't have that quality of a rishi, then he can't be a good leader. If he has the power but doesn't have the dharma, the truthfulness, the good qualities, and the soft heart, then he can't be a good leader. But Maharaj Janamejaya had both of those. As powerful as any great king in the Bharata race, and as devotional as any of the great kings, even as devotional and in a similar way, which we'll explore more, as his great father Parikshit. And the story goes something like this. This is presented by Srila Sanatana Goswami, that Janamejaya, after this whole incident of the sacrifice, trying to kill Takshika and all of that, he settled down to ruling his kingdom, and he was ruling it so expertly and so perfectly. And his guru, or I don't know if it was like personal guru or the Kula guru, was the sage, great sage Jaimini. Jaimini is a great sage. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that Sama, I don't remember the Sanskrit, that of Vedas, I am the Sama Veda. And the Sama Veda is full of the most beautiful prayers and songs. And Jaimini Rishi is the sage in charge of the Sama Veda. So he was the guru of Janamejaya, and he would instruct him, and he would also engage Maharaj Janamejaya in Krishna Katha. And at one time he was reciting the Mahabharata to Maharaj Janamejaya. Now we know when Srila Vyasadeva composed the Mahabharata, the greatness of the Mahabharata cannot be overestimated. And yet there's a quality of the Mahabharata that left Srila Vyasadeva a little bit unsatisfied. We know that from Bhagavatam back in the 4th chapter. Bharata Vyapada Deshena Yamnayartas Chadarshita Drishyate Yachadharmadi Stri Sudra Dibir Apyuta. He describes that I compiled this great Mahabharata, which presents the full meaning and the wealth and the essence of all the Vedic knowledge. It shows the path of Dharmadi. Dharmadi means Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And it's specifically made so that it could be understood and appreciated and relished even by Stri Sudra Dvija Bandhuna, even for people who are generally not qualified, at least back then at that time considered not qualified for receiving the Vedic knowledge. So as great as it is, and it contains within it the incomparable jewel of Bhagavad Gita, and yet Srila Vyasadeva was still unsatisfied, and we heard some couple of months ago that whole history of his dissatisfaction, and therefore he produced the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was able to fully satisfy him and fully enlighten everyone also. So this Mahabharat that Jaimini was teaching to Maharaj Janamejaya was not exactly that same Mahabharat. It was a somewhat different version of Mahabharat that didn't focus as much on politics and mundane dharma and vows and such, but focused much more on Krishna himself and the divinity of Krishna himself and his relationship with his loving devotees. He was giving an edition of the Mahabharata according to time, place, and circumstance. For a great devotee like Janamejaya, he's not on the level of Sri Sudra Dvija Bandhuna. He's the topmost great devotee. So therefore, he wanted to hear a more devotional rendition. And this is what Jaimini spoke to him. And after hearing that, Maharaj Janamejaya was so in ecstasy and so grateful to the great sage Jaimini. And he said, please, great sage, my Guru Maharaj, you have to tell me more. I'm relishing so much these beautiful pastimes of Krishna that you're telling me. There has to be more you could tell me. And he explained, just like in Vyasadev's Mahabharat, after he completed the Mahabharat, Vyasadev's added the Harivamsha, which is an appendix to the Mahabharat, describing more about Krishna and Krishna's lineage and Krishna's activities. So he said, just like Vyasadeva, after completing his Mahabharat, added this appendix of the Harivamsha, so this Mahabharat that you've taught me, there has to be more. Tell me more. What is the appendix? What is the follow-up to this amazing literature which you've spoke to me? And Jaimini explains, yes, there is more. And what he spoke to him then, that appendix to the Mahabharata that he spoke, was Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which was written down, composed, and given to us by Srila Sanatana Goswami. And he describes how then Jaimini frames the telling of that story within the pastime of his great father, Parikshit Maharaj. And he explains how Parikshit Maharaj, we all know, was cursed and heard Bhagavatam for 7 days. And after 7 days, after he finished hearing the Bhagavatam, and he thanked Shukadev Goswami, and Shukadev left. And then Maharaj Parikshit just sat down to meditate until the time of his death came. And when that time came, his mother, Parikshit's mother, Uttara, came running to her son, Parikshit, and went to where he was meditating and sat there and offered obeisances and begged him, oh, my son, please, I'm sad that I'm sad that you're going to die and be going. But what I really want, you've just heard this Bhagavatam for 7 days from Srila Shukadev Goswami. Now you only have a few short hours left. I want you to distill that 7 days of Bhagavatam that you heard and give me the essence of that in the few hours you have left. Please, I'm begging you, teach that to me. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam itself is already the essence. Nigama kalpa taror gali tampalam sukha mukad amrita java samyutam. It's the essence, it's the ripened fruit of the desired tree of all the Vedic knowledge. And it's been spoken by Shukadev Goswami. And because of that, it's the most sweet and the most relishable and the most digestible essence of the Vedic knowledge. So Srimad Bhagavatam is already the essence. It's already the Amrita, the essence of all Vedic knowledge. But Uttara asked her son Parikshit, I want the essence of that essence. I want you to refine it down even more. And she spoke that he spoke that Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which there's a excellent translation given by His Grace Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu, along with Srila Sanatana Goswami's commentary, which if you have the chance and you have the opportunity, and if you're also already actively reading and studying Srila Prabhupada's books and you get the chance, I would recommend reading it. So just like Shukadev was hearing, just like Parikshit Maharaj was hearing Bhagavatam from Shukadev, now Uttara, and in turn through Jaimini, Janamejaya was hearing this essence of the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatamrita. Bhagavatamrita means the essence of the Bhagavatam. Brihad Bhagavatamrita means the great essence of the Bhagavatam. So Janamejaya is actually, in an almost literal sense here, following in his great father's footsteps. As Parikshit Maharaj completely surrendered to hearing the Bhagavatam, now Janamejaya is completely surrendered to hearing the essence of the Bhagavatam from his guru. So this is the kind of king, this is the kind of descendant, the kind of devotee that these brahmanas are glorifying. Yes, he had the greatest lineage, no doubt, and the greatest family. A father, Abhimanyu, just a child, but still, practically speaking, the greatest Maharati of his day. And his mother, Uttara, the daughter of King Virat, who was so qualified to give shelter to the Pandavas, that family. And so amazing how she became Abhimanyu's wife, an incredible history. And the Pandavas are his parents and uncles, and his grandmother is Subhadra, Krishna's sister, and Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is his uncle. So what kind of lineage does he have? What to speak of going back to Yayati, Shibi, Bharata, Yadu, all these great forefathers. What a lineage, and what great qualities, personal qualities he had. Qualities of a great king, qualities of a great sage, and qualities of a great Vaishnava, which he had to such an unlimited degree. But that wasn't enough. His activities were also completely in tune with those great qualities and great lineage. He continued that in his activities, and the legacy he left of Maharaj Janamejaya was simply a continuation of that great legacy that had been going on for yugas practically. And he didn't allow that lineage, that tradition of greatness to be broken. He produced a son, Janamejaya, who completely measured up qualitatively, and like I said, even in almost the same way, practically mirroring his great father's surrender to Shukadev by hearing Bhagavatam and then by hearing Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So this is the kind of great person, Parikshit, that these sages are glorifying and praising and predicting. So what an amazing person, Parikshit. And we hear, like I said, and we've heard so many times, we thank Parikshit Maharaj from the bottom of our hearts for giving us Srimad Bhagavatam and this amazing pastime of chastising the personality of Kali, which the Bhagavatam describes in quite some detail, and Prabhupada's purports there are amazing. And he referenced this pastime quite a lot, both philosophically and also practically, in terms when he would sometimes discuss modern politics or political situations, he would always bring it up. So this is the glory of Parikshit Maharaj. And if the sages were going to do a summary of an ISKCON devotee, say one of us, not me, but some of you out there perhaps, they could make similar glorification. What kind of lineage are we coming from? Coming from Srila Prabhupada. What kind of sage what kind of Rajarshi, you could almost say, is Srila Prabhupada? That incomparable in every way, coming from a great lineage, of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, but even within that lineage, he is the brightest star in the firmament of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. And we could claim that yes, this is our ancestry. We have that, also that honor, that glory of being in that line. Parikshit Maharaj, he heard so perfectly from Shukadev Goswami. But then when it came time for him to speak to his mother, Uttara, he became the most expert speaker. Because just like Prabhupada said of himself, he said, because I was good at hearing, now I am good at speaking. Because I was good at Shravanam, now I am good at Kirtanam. When Prabhupada was a young man, I think he was initiated, I'm not certain, maybe he was initiated at that time. There's a story that his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, had arranged a Vrajamandal Parikrama. And they were going from town to town, village to village in Vrindavan, as Vrajamandal Parikram does. And then one day they announced, okay, tonight, the Parikrama, we're going to see Sheshashayi Temple, Sheshashayi Vishnu Temple. And for those who want, Guru Maharaj will be staying behind at the camp and will be speaking. So you could go to Sheshashayi or see the temple, or you could stay back and hear Guru Maharaj speak. And Prabhupada thought, well, what is this Sheshashayi? I want to hear from my Guru Maharaj. So he stayed behind, and almost everyone went to see the temple. And only a few sannyasis and senior men stayed behind to hear Bhaktisiddhanta, but Prabhupada stayed, and he heard with rapt attention from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He said of himself, he said, sometimes I didn't even understand what he was saying, but I simply heard. I simply dedicated myself to hearing. And then at a later date, when I think it was when one of the senior devotees recommended Abhay Babu to Bhaktisiddhanta for initiation, and Bhaktisiddhanta said, yes, I have marked him. He likes to hear. So this is Prabhupada's glory. He was a perfect disciple, the most perfect disciple. The desire that Bhaktisiddhanta had, the desire that Bhakti Vinod Thakur had, that he dreamed of in his dreams, in his imagination, that all the people of all the world, from all the countries of the world, would come together and chant Jai Gaur Hari, Jai Sachinandana. He dreamed of that. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dreamed of that everyone, everywhere, in every town and village, people would be chanting Hare Krishna, Jai Sachinandana. He dreamed of that. And no one could fulfill that. People thought, oh, this is just some inspirational words, or this is just some theoretical thing. But Prabhupada took it seriously, and he fulfilled that desire of the whole parampara. Therefore, how glorious is he, and how fortunate are we that we're in that lineage. We're in that, at least in that sense, in that limited sense, we're as glorious and as praiseworthy as Parikshit Maharaj for his descending in that line. And then we have to ask, okay, we have the great lineage that we come from, unmatched lineage, nothing lacking, the best lineage, the best opportunity available. So are we going to be Pandu? Or are we going to be Dhritarashtra? Are we going to be Pandavas, or are we going to be Duryodhana? So we also have to develop the guna, the qualities, the devotional qualities, and the activities by practicing devotional service. Are we doing that? Are we serving faithfully and enthusiastically? Are we following the four regulative principles faithfully and enthusiastically, as Prabhupada emphasized in today's purport? Are we following that? Are we doing the Shravana Kirtana Smarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dasyare Pujana Saki Jana Atmani Vedana Govinda Dasa Bilasare? Are we doing all of these things? Are we doing developing the qualities of a devotee, of a devotee who follows Srila Prabhupada? Are we doing the actions of a devotee who follows Srila Prabhupada? And still there's more. If we want to be a worthy successor of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, if we want to be a worthy successor of Srila Prabhupada and his followers, there's more also. Rajarshinam Janayita. Parikshit Maharaj, part of his glories is that he continued the legacy after himself. He continued that lineage of greatness. So what does this mean? This means preaching. That as great as it is that we have the fortune to have taken shelter of Srila Prabhupada, and that greatness increases if we actually engage in the acts of devotional service, the behavior of a devotee and the services of a devotee purely and enthusiastically, and develop all of the good qualities of a devotee, that increases that fortune and our own qualification even more and more. And the final test is, are we carrying that on to future generations? And this is the activity of preaching. Preaching means that what we've received from Srila Prabhupada, we give to others, to what we give to our juniors, or to even to our friends, our seniors, whoever we meet. We have to give them Krishna consciousness. We give them the same teachings we've received. And then that's just like that's the full glories of Parikshit Maharaj, that's also the full glories, the full perfection of being a devotee in this fortunate line, not just being fortunate, but taking that fortune and distributing that fortune. Yare Deka Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Gyaya Guru Hana Tare Adesh. That Yare Deka, you see someone, you meet someone, Tare Kaha, what do? You tell them about Krishna, you give them Krishna Upadesh. Krishna Upadesh means teachings of Krishna. And Prabhupada explains teachings of Krishna means teachings given directly by Krishna himself. That's Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna Upadesh, teachings of Krishna, also means teachings about Krishna. That means Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is teachings by the great sages and devotees about Krishna, and Bhagavad Gita is teachings given by Krishna himself. So Yare Deka, you see someone, you meet someone, you tell them about Krishna, you give them Krishna consciousness, and bring them. Parikshit Maharaj had, I don't know if he had more sons, as far as I know, he had the one son. But we can spread this lineage, continue this line, this ancestry, this spiritual genetic line to 1 or 10 or hundreds or thousands of people. So our opportunity is so unlimited to do that. Whoever you meet, you speak to them, you tell them about Krishna. Amara Gyaya Guruhana Tara Adesh. This is the instruction of our spiritual master. This is the instruction of Srila Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that we take that instruction on our head to become a guru and to teach this to everyone and liberate all the people of our land. So everyone, Parikshit was a great king and a producer of great kings. So a guru is a great disciple and a great devotee, and then he becomes a producer of great devotees and great disciples. So everyone can and should become this guru. Excuse me. This is the perfection of what it means to be a follower of Srila Prabhupada, to accept him as our master, to accept his teachings, to accept his service and instructions, and to make sure that this line continues, that it doesn't break. Like Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, that the line has appeared to be lost. So this would be the worst thing, if the line of descent from Srila Prabhupada becomes lost or corrupted or watered down or unnecessarily changed or manipulated or contaminated. This is the most awful thing. Parikshit Maharaj fought like anything to stop the intrusion of the age of Kali. And Janamejaya fought like anything to stop the intrusion of the age of Kali. And of course, that was the end of Dwapara Yuga. So in the ultimate sense, the introduction of Kali Yuga was inevitable. But at least within our limited sphere, our limited preaching abilities, it's not inevitable. We can fight against this tidal wave of Kali, this storm of Kali. Prabhupada said, if you know rains are going to come, it doesn't mean you surrender, oh, the rains are going to come. No, you get an umbrella. So we know that Kali Yuga is here. It doesn't take very much to see the bad influences in this world. But Krishna consciousness is so powerful, especially as Prabhupada gave us, is so powerful that that tide of Kali Yuga can be reversed, at least to some degree, and people can be added into this lineage, into this line, and then they could also themselves become devotees and become gurus and carry on the line after them, and they'll become devotees and become gurus and carry on the line after them. And at least theoretically, there's no limits to how this can expand. Practically, real life, who knows, how wide it can spread. But at least theoretically, Prabhupada expected us to do this. So everyone has to become guru. That means, just like Parikshit, becoming great king means what? That first of all, you have the great lineage, like Parikshit and like Prabhupada. And you have the directions, how to behave, how to serve, how to hear and chant and remember, and become the servant and become the friend and surrender everything to Krishna and develop all the devotional qualities and become sufficiently qualified so that you could impart that to others, become guru and impart that to others. So this is my way of looking at Parikshit Maharaj's glorification, seeing how we can relate it to ourselves, make it practical to ourselves. But even aside from that, just hearing the glories of Parikshit is itself wonderful and pious and auspicious to hear the glories of such a great devotee. And if we can also inspire ourselves to accept more devotional service and preach more in devotional service, so much the better. Just like the Pandavas received that and they continued it and passed it on to their son Parikshit, and Parikshit carried it and passed it on. And Brahma got this great knowledge from Krishna himself and passed it down to Narada, Vyasadeva, Madhvacharya, then specifically to the Gaudiya branch, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis, and all of our modern day acharyas, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Srila Prabhupada's disciples, and ourselves. So this is the lineage. Our fortune is, I can't express it, I can't measure it, I can't say how great it is. Just know that it's a really, really great thing, and we shouldn't take it for granted. And part of not taking it for granted means taking it into our own lives very intensely, and also for those who are advanced enough and bold enough and sincere enough to also pass it on to others. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this opportunity. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. If there's any questions or comments or discussion, we can do that now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Prabhuji, for a wonderful session. Made so many points. So if we have any comment, question, or any kind of glorifications of the Lord, so please go ahead, unmute yourself, and you can go ahead, or you can raise the hand as you wish. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice class.
Hare
And
Krishna, Prabhu.
specifically
Thank you.
for glorifying the hearing. Hearing is very important. And as you mentioned, Prabhupada was hearing very attentively. So we all should do that. From hearing, actually, all the knowledge comes, and also we get blessings about Vaishnavas and Guru. So hearing is very profitable for all of us. Thank you very much for emphasizing that.
Jai, thank you for emphasizing that. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Vrindavan Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the nice class. And the way you're saying that the Delhi lineage and how we came, and I'm very much thankful for Prabhupada. And then I'm very much thankful for this Bhagavatam classes. Actually, every day I wait for that class in the morning. And every day we are so lucky. I am so lucky to hear every day in the morning. The day starts with Bhagavatam class. And each and different speakers, they're giving their thoughts. And I'm gaining a lot. But I'm just hearing. I don't know how much I can tell here and there little bit whatever my knowledge, and if anybody I come across which they don't know anything, I try to explain. But I'm very much thankful to Prabhupada, and I'm very much thankful about this Parikshit Maharaj, how he did. And because of him we got this Bhagavatam, and because of this, and we are hearing every day. And I'm very much thankful. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you. And I'll also second the motion about your appreciation of the morning Bhagavatam class. I don't listen every day. I try to listen a few days a week. And it really is amazing to hear everyone's realizations. And I don't hear classes like all over the world, but the quality of classes here in Philly are actually very nice. I really like it. All the speakers are really great and shining their own particular lights on the verses. It's really nice, very nice here.
Thanks
Anything,
to Philadelphia
Hare
Temple.
Anything else, question or comment?
Thank you very much for your nice class.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, if there's nothing else, thank you very much. Any announcements for today?
I have one question.
Okay, go right ahead, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. When we try to give Krishna consciousness to other people, they don't want to hear about Krishna actually. And when we talk to them about the instructions which are in the Gita, they like to hear that. Is it also a devotional service? Giving the instructions of Krishna to others. In the beginning, they don't want to hear about Krishna.
I'm not sure I exactly follow your question. You're saying people want to hear Bhagavad Gita, but they don't want to hear about devotional service?
No, about Krishna. When I say about Krishna, they don't understand or don't like to hear. But when I talk about the shlokas in the Gita, so they like to hear about that because it helps to become the better person.
Yeah.
Is it also devotional service? Teaching the
I think I get your point now. At least if they're appreciating the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, that's a good thing. Or at least it's a foundation to build upon. And depending on who the person is, depending on your relationship with that person, and depending on how stubborn they are, you can use that interest in Bhagavad Gita to gradually introduce them to more and more explicitly devotional items. For example, a very common thing in India is that people very, very much like when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you should do your duty. And people think, awesome, I'm going to do my duty. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to make lots of money, blah, 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 blah. But then you could gradually, if someone who says like that, you could gradually introduce, well, you do your duty, but you're also supposed to be detached from the results of it. You're also supposed to take those results, yagyartat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. You're also supposed to take the results of that work and offer them in sacrifice to Krishna. And then gradually you can introduce principles of devotional service. not everyone is going to be receptive to that. And not everyone's preaching ability is necessarily able to change everyone's mind. Prabhupada was the best preacher ever, but he favorably influenced everyone, but he didn't immediately change everyone's minds, and everyone who met him immediately surrendered to Krishna. Many people heard from him and then went away and went on their way, because you can't force someone, you can't reach into their heart and grab you can't grab the soul by the neck and shake them and say, surrender to Krishna. All we could do is preach to the best of our ability with our God-given intelligence. But if there's something, like you say, if they appreciate something in Bhagavad Gita, you use that as a hook, that to give them a little more Bhagavad Gita, a little more Bhagavad Gita, a little more understanding of Bhagavad Gita, to bring them to the point. But people are stubborn in so many ways. That's like I said, that thing, oh, do your duty. That's a very popular thing in India. Or in the West, there's the popular idea, oh, Hinduism is cool, Bhagavad Gita is great, awesome, and so is this, and so is that, a more New Age idea. And that's also an appreciation of Bhagavad Gita, but also not a real understanding and an appreciation that doesn't lead to full surrender. So then you may need a different technique to get them to understand Bhagavad Gita, to teach them about devotional service. So everyone's an individual, every preacher is an individual, and every preachee or person being preached to is an individual. And that's the expertise of the preacher, how to reach people. Sometimes you can reach someone, sometimes you can't. If you can't, you do the best you can. You get them to chant Hare Krishna if you can. Give them a piece of burfi if that's all that they're willing to accept. But somehow or other, you give them a little touch of Krishna, a little taste of Krishna.
So
but it's not always easy. It's not always simple and straightforward.
But if they believe in the Gita, so they are still doing the devotional service.
Yes, absolutely. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that if you study this conversation between me and Arjuna, you're worshiping me with your intelligence. So if someone's actually reading and studying Bhagavad Gita, even a little appreciation, then that's devotional service. But we want to preach to them and help them to make that devotional service more explicit, more direct, more intentional. But yes, that's also devotional service. Prabhupada said if they even touch the book, or if they even read one line or one word of the book, they're doing devotional service. But the duty of the preacher is to increase that and nourish that so it grows more and more.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yes, yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Prabhu, can I ask, I want to say something.
Go right ahead.
Like Parikshit Maharaj, when he has the curse from Shringi, that he was not that angry, and he was a very good king, and he accepted that. But see, Janamejaya, his son, he was so angry, and he did that yajna for all the snakes and everything. So my feeling is, it is enough from the previous, like ancestors. Slowly it's coming down because of this Kali Yuga, or actually Kali's this thing only Parikshit Maharaj did that. Kali's influence only. But Janamejaya, he was he did that thing, and it went up to Indra and everybody.
Yeah.
So how could this will change, brother?
I can't see into Janamejaya's mind. One difference is that a devotee can very easily and peacefully accept an offense against himself, but he does not so easily accept an offense against another devotee. So that's one explanation of why Janamejaya might have reacted so violently, because it was an offense against him, but it was an offense against his great father. So, and another point is, it's natural that Jesus, you killed my father. You killed my father. What do you expect him to do? That's very hard to just peacefully accept, oh, you killed my father. Okay. And actually, there was a crime worthy of being punished, but he went a little overboard, just like Dhruva Maharaj also. He let his anger get a little bit overdone. He was justified in being angry, but he went a little bit overdone. And then when the sages pointed out to him, he said, oh, yes, you're right. And then he withdrew that anger. So Janamejaya similarly. So, and also it's just part of the pastime. So all of these factors combine to have Janamejaya behave as he did. But I can't look in his heart and know exactly what he was thinking, but those are just some thoughts on it.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Krishna. Okay. Any announcements for tonight? Sunday feast as usual.
Yeah, Prabhu, so we don't have Dona Prabhu for the announcement, but as usual, Sunday feast will be there today. And very most important festival is coming, Radhastami, that is on Saturday.
Oh yes, Radhastami on Saturday, awesome.
We should be very excited for that, for the service and to be available there. And this time, I believe it is in the daytime only, so we will have to check the calendar. And later days means Monday, Tuesday, anytime Dona Prabhu will announce what time exactly it is. If anybody is knowing Kavalya Prabhu,
I got the temple email about it, and the program starts at 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to. I could actually read
We
off
all
this
got the email.
if you're willing to wait.
Yeah,
15
sure, Prabhu.
seconds here. I'll call up the email and we can see what the schedule is. But it starts at 10 o'clock with feast at 12:30 after Kirtan, if I remember correctly. Okay. 10 to 1 p.m. And also after the feast at 2 o'clock going to Center City for Harinam also. Pushpabhishek, Rajabhog Arti, Kirtans, talk on Radhika. Something that says personal note offering. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Feast and then Sankirtan at 2 o'clock in Philly.
Nice. So the whole afternoon we are engaged in the Radhastami devotional services.
Yes. And also, since you mentioned Drona, I heard that Drona and also have their test today for Bhakti Shastri.
Shobharade.
Mother Shobharade, they're having.
I see.
Actually, it's just starting now at 9 o'clock. So everyone can.
They're busy.
They're all very qualified devotees, and I'm sure they've been studying very hard. So they don't need our blessings, but I'm sure an extra prayer for Krishna in their hearts to give them all intelligence to ace their test.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. See everyone tonight. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody. Please accept.
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.